Okay, so now you're done with everything you want to do with the guitar. You've made your adjustments. You've cleaned up the neck. You've replaced anything you wanted to replace. You've done all you need to do. Now it's time to string it up. My favorite set of strings are the Dario XLs. I usually get a set of 10s. It goes to 10 to 46. And other brands I have used, the most common popular ones, I found that they break a lot more on the B and high E strings, especially on strats I've experienced. So I switched to these and I've been very pleased with them ever since. No real trick to stringing it up. If you got your cover on, lines up, it's just easy. You just poke it right through the hole. Bring it out the other side. Just make sure that you got it all the way through. It's not hung up on something. Okay, so here's the key part. How to wind it around the string peg. Okay, it's very important on which side you have the string on the tuning peg, on one side or the other, because that will determine which way you turn the tuner to tune the guitar. Also, just a little tip, you want the hole for it totally perpendicular with the neck of the guitar. So you go on the inside of it and you fish it through to the outside. Like so. Now, if you had locking tuners, which means it has a dial on the bottom here that will cinch down and pinch the string cylinder inside that goes up against the inside of the string there and holds it tight, well, there you would just pull it as snug as you can get it. But on these standard tuners, you need a little more slack. I get about 3 fingers worth down here near the bottom. And that gives me enough to be able to, if I need to in the future, loosen up the strings quite a bit, say to slide the nut off or to make some adjustments or whatever, without having too much getting all bunged up at the tuning peg. So now I got the length that I want. As I do is I take the string and I bend it back toward itself like so, put a nice little kink in it there, fish it underneath, bring it around, and now I'm going to again put a nice little kink there. So about that, the battery croaked on me. There's a break there. Okay, so I fished the string underneath, put a little kink there. Now I bring it up, and extra string here is kind of pinched between the string and the tuning peg. And so as I tighten it, it's going to bind this so there isn't any slippage. And here's where my tuner, or my string tightener, will save me some time and make things easier than just making my winds by hand. And so I'm going to start just real quickly winding it. Now as I do that, it's important that this string, as it goes around it, goes beneath the top row I got. So I'm going to keep pressure here so that as it tightens up, it's going lower and lower. That'll keep the tension I want on the nut. Like so. Oh, wrong direction. Quite simple. And I just take my clippers and I try to get as close as possible to the tuning peg, trim off the extra. But with the other strings, that little part that sticks out is so thin and sharp that it really snags on things. I've put cuts on myself. I've had it grab fabrics and whatnot. And so I found another way of doing that so the little part that sticks out doesn't end up tearing your fingers clothes and whatever else. I've had it, grabbing gig bag, especially in here, you go to stick it inside the gig bag and that just rips it all apart. So there's a better way of doing it on the 4 of the thinner strings. So here again, I've measured my length, made sure it was nice and snug coming through the bridge. Use my 3-finger spacing technique, and I fished it through just like the other one. But here I'm going to do something different. Instead of having this come through like this, I'm going to just pull it right back out where that was, go a hair past, and then bend it over. I'm going to, you see I got a little loop right there, and then I'm going to trim off all but just a little bit, like so. Then I'm going to take that and fish that into the hole instead. So I strung up the first 2 with the binding technique. The second one, as I showed you, but this is a better way of doing the same thing. Again, I brought it through my bridge, measured it to the appropriate length, and here I'm going to fish it right back through the tuning peg, just so the little nub of that loop is sticking out, which won't cut you, unlike the other style, right? And then wind it up normal. Okay, so when I got to the last one, that's the only one I do a bit different on these 3 here, where the first time I looped it, I went above, on top of, and then the rest of the winds go below, as opposed to the rest where all my winds are below it. This one I do one on top, and then the rest I hold the string down and it goes below it. If I do one above, one below, it locks nice and tight. You don't get any string slippage. So the first 2 strings do where I come through, bring it around underneath, and then pull it up here to pinch, and then I wind it up. Do that on both of these. This one, I created a kink, fed it through, and then tighten it up. This one, and this one, and this one, I brought it through, pushed it back in, until I just got a little loop sticking out, clipped it, tightened it up. This one, same as those ones, but 1 loop on top, the rest down below. Okay, another thing to do when setting up a guitar is the intonation. That's really easy to do. Doesn't take any knowledge or special skill at all. Yet a lot of people who don't work on their own guitars and stuff think it's something a shop has to do. Anybody can do it themselves. It's really, really simple. So all you do is you tune it, and then you're going to put your finger just above the 12th fret, right where you got the 2 dots. So if that's tuned to E, and I put my finger here, it should be E as well, right? 12th fret. But if I hit that and my tuner says that it's just slightly sharp, then what I want to do is bring the saddle back. And you do that by going clockwise, tightening it, pulling it back further, lengthening the string between the nut and the saddle. And that will bring it into tune. If it's on the other side, well, then you do the other way. You go counterclockwise, you loosen this, which shortens the string length, and you just keep doing it one tiny little turn at a time until you have on the E string a perfectly tuned E when fretting it on the 12th fret. You do that all the way across, and then go back and check it. Do it again. And while we're on this subject of adjusting the saddles, another thing you want to do is adjust the saddle height with these little screws. Now, I've done it before in a pinch, and trying to use a tiny little screwdriver or something in there, you're just going to strip them. Get the proper Allen wrench and adjust them to your desired height. There's not going to be any rule of thumb to go by, just how high you like to have the strings, that which is called the action. So by adjusting your saddle heights, you're adjusting the action, how far away the strings are from the body or from the neck right here at the base of the neck. I prefer it to be rather low. Most people do. But depending on how low your nut is cut, again, this is your nut. If this is cut really low and the strings are really, really close to that first fret, and you lower the action here, you're going to get fret buzz. I can't stand that. I absolutely hate it, which is why I end up oftentimes replacing the nut with the new Graphtec, so I can have it a little bit higher and get the action here nice and low. You can see here on this guitar, hopefully, the action's pretty low on this guitar. Now that I've gotten the nut to the right height, I adjusted the action with the saddles there, and now I got fairly low action there, and I don't have fret buzz. Also, while we're here, we'll talk about adjusting your pickup height. Now these are active pickups, means they're powered by a 9-volt battery, which is hidden underneath the pickguard. With the actives, they have a much, much weaker magnet, so you can get them really close to the strings and you're not going to have a problem. If you use regular pickups, passive pickups that don't have a battery, the pickup height not only changes the sound, the tone, and whatnot, and not just if it gets louder. If you go closer to the strings, obviously it's going to be louder, but there's much more to it than that. Because of how it picks up the string vibration, the closer the pickup is to the string, the more it picks up the vibration. The further away it is, it's going to read the vibration just a little bit less. So it's going to affect more than just the volume level. It's going to affect how your guitar sounds. So getting that to a proper height, starting at a good rule of thumb and then adjusting it to taste is a good idea, but you have to be careful not going too high, because then the magnet creates a significant pull on the strings. If the pickups are too close to the strings, eventually it will magnetize the strings. When you adjust the pickups, you want to adjust it with fretting the string at the lowest fret, and then getting the height, which should be fairly even between, at least that's a good place to start, is where each pickup is evenly spaced below the string. You want to do that on both sides, obviously. How much do you want to go? Well, here, because these are active pickups, I was able to go a lot closer than I normally would with a passive pickup. Here, these ones, I would say, are 1/4 inch. Normally with passive pickups, you want to go more like 3/8 to a 1/2 inch space between the pickups and the string. I normally would go 3/8, but you may go lower. You can go much lower if you prefer, but you're going to lose volume and it's going to change. So a good place again to start is just put everything at the rule of thumb and then adjust it slightly according to taste. You may want to get higher output and bring them close to the strings, but you cross a line and you really start sacrificing your sound. It's good to do that. Here's why you stretch out your strings and whatnot and then retune it. Should be good to go.